I learned to stop hoping the year my husband died. Hope, I discovered, was a luxury women like me couldn't afford. 23 rooms. I'd counted them once, when counting rooms was easier than counting losses. The Hartwell Mansion, biggest house in the territory. They called it. They never mentioned it was also the emptiest. Morning light filtered through curtains I kept drawn. I walked the hallway in silence, my footsteps echoing off walls that had witnessed 3 years of solitude. 3 years since the mining accident that took Thomas and left me with more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. 3 years since I'd learned that wealth bought everything except what mattered. The kitchen table waited. I set 1 plate, 1 cup. The ritual never changed. I'd stopped setting 2 the week after the funeral. When I finally accepted he wasn't coming back, the coffee was bitter. The way I'd learned to make it after he left, I'd forgotten sugar existed. Forgotten sweetness was possible. I sat in the chair that faced the window. Thomas's chair remained empty. Sometimes I thought about moving it, donating it, burning it. I never did. Empty chairs were honest. They didn't pretend to care while calculating how much they could take. The knock came at 9, like clockwork. Through the lace curtain, I recognized Robert Morrison's carriage. Town banker, monthly visits, monthly requests. I'd learned the pattern. Everyone had one. I waited 3 more knocks before answering. Let them wonder if I was home. Let them sweat. Mrs. Hartwell. He removed his hat, smile too wide, eyes too calculating. Beautiful morning. Mr. Morrison. I didn't move from the doorway. What is it this time? His smile faltered. Good. The school needs repairs. The community thought, perhaps you might contribute. How much? Well, we'd estimated, how much do you want from me? I kept my voice flat. 3 years had taught me not to waste words on people who only heard dollar amounts. 500 would. Fine. I turned away, leaving him standing there. Let him wait. I retrieved my checkbook from the study, wrote the amount, signed my name. The pen felt heavy. Everything felt heavy these days. I handed him the check without ceremony. Anything else? Mrs. Hartwell, your generosity? Good day, Mr. Morrison. I closed the door before he could finish. His gratitude wasn't real. It never was. They all had the same smile, polite. Practiced, profitable. His smile never reached his eyes. They never did. The lock clicked into place. I always locked the door, kept the world out, kept myself in. The silence rushed back like water filling a hole. I returned to the kitchen, to my bitter coffee, to my empty chair. Through the window, the horse barn stood against the morning sky. Steam rose from my cup, disappeared into nothing. Like everything else, the horses, at least, were honest. They wanted hay, water, exercise, simple needs, simple honesty. I envied them. My breeding operation had grown despite my isolation. 10 mares now, 2 stallions. Good bloodlines, better prices. I knew horses the way I'd once known people before I learned people were unknowable. But the work was getting harder. I needed help. Needed someone to manage the day-to-day while I handled the breeding decisions. Needed. The word tasted wrong. I didn't like needing anything from anyone. But the ad had already run in the territory papers. Ranch manager wanted experience required, good wages. I'd receive applications tomorrow. I finished my coffee in the empty kitchen. 1 plate, 1 cup, 23 rooms of silence. This was my life now. This was what Thomas's fortune had bought me. I wondered if he'd known. If he'd understood that leaving me the biggest house in the territory also meant leaving me the loneliest. 3 men came before him. 3 men who looked at the mansion before they looked at the horses. 3 men who asked about my late husband's mining fortune before they asked about the mare's. I dismissed them all. The 4th arrived on a Tuesday. I watched from the parlor window as he rode up worn saddle. Patient horse. No hurry in his movements. He didn't stare at the house. Didn't crane his neck to count the windows or estimate the value. He simply dismounted, tied his horse, and waited by the barn like he belonged there. Different. The word whispered through my mind before I could stop it. I made him wait 15 minutes. Let him stand in the cold while I studied him from behind the curtains. He didn't pace, didn't fidget, just stood there, calm as stone, occasionally stroking his horse's neck. When I finally opened the door, his hat came off immediately. "Ma'am, I'm here about the ranch manager position. Name, Jack Brennan, ma'am." No mention of where he'd come from. No story about his history. Just his name and the reason he'd come. I gestured toward the barn. "Let's see if you know horses." He followed at a respectful distance. Not too close. Not servile. Just proper. The barn smelled like hay and horse and honest work. Things that didn't lie. Things that didn't want my money. "Tell me about her." I pointed to my best mare, Copper, nervous and high-strung. He approached slowly, let her smell his hand. His movements were practiced, confident. Beautiful animal. Thoroughbred lines, if I'm seeing right. Need someone patient, someone who understands nervous, isn't the same as mean. I watched his hands, gentle but sure. The mare didn't shy away. "And him?" I nodded toward the stallion. "Strong, good conformation. Bred for work and speed both." He paused. "This is a quality operation. Ma'am, whoever's been managing it knows what they're doing. I've been managing it." He turned, met my eyes. "Then you know what you're doing." No surprise, no condescension, no poorly hidden doubt that a woman could run a breeding operation. Just acceptance. Another difference I tried not to notice. The job pays $30 a month. Room in the bunkhouse. Meals are your responsibility. I quoted $20 less than the work was worth. I always did. Tested everyone the same way, see if they'd negotiate desperately, reveal their hunger for money. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Is that what you think the work is worth?" The question caught me off guard. Not a counteroffer. Not acceptance. Just a question. "It's what I'm offering." "Fair enough." He nodded once. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock. "Yes, ma'am." He moved toward the barn door, then paused. "Ma'am, would it be all right if I checked the tack room, like to know where things are before I start?" "Go ahead." I watched him disappear into the back of the barn. Heard him moving around. The soft sounds of someone learning a new space. He didn't ask about my husband. Didn't ask about the mansion. Didn't ask how a woman ended up alone in the biggest house in the territory with 10 horses and more money. Then since. He only asked about the tack room when he emerged. His hat was back on. "Thank you for the opportunity. Ma'am, I'll see you tomorrow morning." "Mr. Brennan." "Yes?" "Ma'am, why did you apply for this position?" He considered the question. "Needed work. Heard you had a quality operation. Seemed like a good fit. That's all. Should there be more?" I didn't answer. He didn't seem to expect one. After he left, I stood in the barn alone. The horses had settled, calm in their stalls. Copper stood near her gate, watching the door where he'd exited. "Don't get attached," I told her. "He'll be like the others, just taking longer to show it." But she kept watching the door, and I kept wondering why he'd smelled like leather and sun, not cologne and pretense. Why he'd asked about the tack room and not my money. I had a plan. I always had a plan. If he was like the others, I'd know soon enough. Everyone had a price. I just had to wait for him to name his. The first week passed in careful silence. He arrived before dawn, worked until dusk, spoke only when necessary. I watched from the windows, not supervising, studying, learning his patterns, waiting for the moment he'd stop pretending and show me what he really wanted. The moment never came. He repaired the gate I'd been meaning to fix, organized the tack room, gentled the nervous mare with patience I'd forgotten men possessed. Every evening he tipped his hat. Every morning he asked if there was anything specific I needed. Nothing more, nothing less. On the 8th day, I decided to test him properly. I'd learned the hard way that everyone had a price. The question wasn't whether they'd take what they wanted, it was how long they'd wait before taking it. 3 years had taught me to find that breaking point fast. Better to know early than to be surprised later. 20 gold coins. I counted them carefully in my study, the lamplight making them gleam. Each one worth a month's wages, each one a temptation most men couldn't resist. I waited until evening, until I saw him head to the bunkhouse for supper. Then I walked to the barn and scattered the coins across the hay, some visible, some half hidden. Made it look accidental. Made it look like carelessness from a wealthy widow who had so much money she didn't notice when she dropped it back in the mansion. I locked myself in the study, told myself it was practical. Better to know now than when I'd started to trust. Better to catch him early than to be disappointed later. But my hands shook as I closed the ledger. 3 days passed. I checked the barn every evening after he left. The coins remained where I'd placed them. 17, visible. 3 hidden in the hay. All untouched. I stopped sleeping well. Started wondering if I wanted him to take them or wanted him to return them. The question kept me awake, staring at the ceiling of my empty bedroom, trying to understand which answer I was hoping for. On the 4th morning, a knock came before dawn. I descended the stairs in my robe, heart pounding. Through the window, I could see him standing on the porch, small leather pouch in his hand. I opened the door. "Mr. Brennan, it's early. Found these in the barn." "Ma'am?" He held out the pouch. "Figured you'd want them back." My hands were steady as I took it. The weight was right. I didn't open it. Didn't count them. Just held the pouch and tried to remember how to breathe. "All of them." "Yes, ma'am." 20 gold coins. Checked twice to make sure I hadn't missed any. 20? Not 19. Not 15. 20? You didn't keep even one. He looked genuinely confused. "Ma'am, you could have taken one. I wouldn't have known. You could have said you found 19. Understanding crossed his face. Then something that might have been disappointment. Not in me. In the question itself. "Ma'am, I work for what I got. Stealing ain't working." My father's voice echoed in my memory. Same words, same philosophy, back when I believed such men existed outside of memory. Most people would have kept something. I'm not most people. He said it simply. Not defensive. Not proud. Just fact. "No." The word came out softer than I intended. "No. I don't suppose you are." He shifted his weight. "If there's nothing else, ma'am, the horses need feeding." "Mr. Brennan, ma'am, thank you for returning them. He nodded once and left. I stood in the doorway, cold morning air washing over me, leather pouch heavy in my hands. Inside, I opened it, counted each coin, 20, every single one. I sat at the kitchen table as the sun rose. One plate, one cup. The pouch sat between them. Something in my chest cracked. Just a little. A wall I'd built 3 years ago. Finding its first fissure. I'd been wrong. Maybe not about everyone, but about him. The question was, what would I do about it? I started finding excuses to visit the barn, checking on the horses. I told myself, making sure he was working, making sure the feed was distributed properly, making sure the water troughs were clean. All lies I pretended to believe. The truth was simpler and more complicated. I wanted to see if the coin test had been a fluke. Wanted to catch him in a moment of weakness, of normal human greed. Wanted proof that he was like everyone else, just better at hiding it. Instead, I kept finding things that made the wall crack wider. He'd repaired the north paddock fence without being asked. The gate that had stuck for months now swung smooth and silent. The tack room, which I'd let fall into disorganized chaos, was sorted by size and purpose. Small things, practical things, things that didn't require thanks or acknowledgement, done simply because they needed doing. I watched him work with Copper, the nervous mare nobody else could handle. His voice drifted through the barn, low, steady, kind. A voice I'd forgotten men could have. Easy, girl. Nobody's rushing you. You take your time. That's right. See nothing to fear. The mare, who'd shied from every hand but mine, stood calm under his touch. I must have made a sound. He turned, saw me watching. "She's coming along," he said. Just needed someone to be patient with her. Most people aren't. Most people are fools. He smiled at the horse. Not at me. Animals know when you're lying to them. Know when you're just pretending to care. She needed someone who meant it. I thought about all the people who'd pretended to care about me. All the smiles that never reached eyes. All the concern that disappeared once the check was signed. "Do you want more money, Mr. Brennan?" He paused, hand still on Copper's neck. "Ma'am, I'm offering you $60 a month, double what I'm paying now. The work hasn't changed." "No, but then the pay shouldn't either." He turned to face me fully. "Fair pay for fair work. Ma'am, that's all I need. More than that wouldn't be fair. Wouldn't be honest." "Why?" The word came out sharper than I intended. "Why won't you take it?" He was quiet for a moment. "Then, because I'm not here for your money. Everyone's here for my money." "Not everyone." Something in his eyes steady, honest. Patient as his voice with the horses made my throat tight. I turned away before he could see it. "The feed room needs organizing," I said. "I'll get to it this afternoon." I left before I could say something foolish. Before I could ask him to stay for coffee. Before I could crack any wider. But the next morning, I found myself making 2 cups instead of 1. I stared at them on the counter. When had I taken down the second cup, I didn't remember the decision. Didn't remember my hand reaching for it. But there it sat. Dark coffee steaming in the cold morning air. Old habits. I told myself, nothing more. Lies. Myself answered. I carried both cups to the barn. He was already working, mucking out the stalls. Hard work. Honest work. He looked up when I entered. "Brought coffee," I said. Held out the second cup like an accusation. He cleaned his hands on a rag. Took it carefully. "Thank you, ma'am. That's kind." We drank in silence. Not the empty silence of my mansion, but something different. Something that felt dangerously close to peaceful. "Good coffee," he said finally. "It's bitter. Bitter can be good. Honest. No pretense about being something it's not." He took another sip. "I like honest things." I looked at him over the rim of my cup. Saw him clearly for maybe the first time. Not as hired help, not as another person waiting to disappoint me, but as someone who'd returned 20 gold coins and refused extra wages and treated nervous horses with the kindness I'd forgotten existed. "So do I said quietly. "I just forgot for a while that they existed." We finished our coffee as the sun climbed higher. When he handed the empty cup back, his fingers brushed mine, warm, calloused, real. "Thank you, ma'am." "You're welcome." Days passed, then weeks. I stopped counting them. Started counting other things instead. How many times he smiled at the horses. How many times I almost smiled back. How many mornings I made 2 cups of coffee without thinking. How many evenings I watched the barn light and felt something other than loneliness. I noticed the second cup before I realized I'd set it out. It sat on the shelf next to mine, waiting, accusing, hoping I'd forgotten how quiet could be peaceful instead of empty. How work could be shared instead of solitary. How presence could be comfortable instead of threatening. He never asked for more, never expected less. Just worked, day after day, treating the horses with kindness and me with respect. I started noticing things. The way he never complained. The way he tipped his hat each evening, same as always. The way he made me feel less alone without demanding anything in return. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford, or so I kept telling myself. But the voice was getting quieter, less convinced. The storm came the week before Christmas. Snow that turned to ice, wind that rattled windows, and made the mansion feel even larger, even emptier. I watched from the parlor as the world disappeared behind white walls. The bunkhouse was too far. I knew it before the wind picked up. Knew he couldn't make it back safely through weather like this. The knock came just after dark. "Ma'am." He stood on the porch, covered in snow. Bunkhouse door froze shut. I tried to force it, but I'd likely break something. "Would it be all right if I waited out the storm in the barn?" "Don't be ridiculous." The words came out harsher than I meant. "The barn's colder than the bunkhouse. Come inside." He hesitated. "Ma'am, I don't want to. It's not a request. Mr. Brennan, it's common sense." I stepped aside. He entered slowly, snow melting off his coat onto my clean floor. I didn't care about the floor. Kitchen's this way. I'd set 2 plates without thinking. The realization hit as I pulled out a chair. When had this become normal? When had I stopped being alone? He sat carefully, like the furniture might break under him. "This is kind of you." "It's practical." I served stew from the pot I'd made too much of. Always too much. Never learned to cook for one. You can't work if you freeze to death. Still kind. We ate in awkward silence. I'd forgotten how to do this, how to share space, how to make conversation that wasn't about horses or weather or work, how to just be with another person. "Your husband," he said finally. "He must have been a good man." My spoon stopped halfway to my mouth. "Why would you say that the horses, the operation, the care you put into it all, seems like the kind of thing someone taught you? Someone who cared enough to show you proper..." Memory flooded back. Thomas in the barn, patient and kind, teaching me bloodlines and training methods. Back before the mining fortune. back when we were happy. He was... The admission hurt. Until the mind took him. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. I set down my spoon too hard. Sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Sorry doesn't... I stopped. I'd said too much. Shown too much, but he didn't pounce on the weakness. Didn't offer empty platitudes or false comfort. Just sat there, quiet and steady. Loneliness is heavy, he said finally. I reckon money can't make it lighter. The words hit like a physical blow. 3 years of people assuming money solved everything. 3 years of fake sympathy from people who didn't care. And here was this cowboy in my kitchen, seeing what nobody else had bothered to look for. No. My voice cracked. No, it can't. He reached across the table. Didn't touch me. Just laid his hand palm up on the wood between us, an offering, a choice. I stared at it, calloused, honest, real. I know lonely too, he said quietly. Spent 10 years drifting, never staying anywhere long enough to matter, never letting anyone close enough to care. Funny how you can be surrounded by people and still be alone. Why did you stop drifting? He met my eyes, got tired of it, tired of moving, tired of not mattering. Thought maybe it was time to find somewhere worth staying. The question hung between us, unspoken. Was this that place? Was I that reason I wanted to ask, wanted to run, wanted to put my hand in his, and wanted to lock myself in 23 empty rooms and never come out? I should check the horses, he said, pulling his hand back, giving me space I wasn't sure I wanted. I'll come with you. We bundled against the storm, made the dash to the barn together. Inside, the horses were restless but safe. We moved through the familiar routine of checking water, distributing extra hay, calming nervous animals. Copper nickered when she saw him, walked right up to the stall gate, gentle as a lamb. She trusts you, I said. She trusts you too. I just gave her reason to trust me. He stroked her nose. That's all trust is, really. Giving someone reasons, then seeing if they prove you right or wrong. I thought about the 20 gold coins, about the refused wages, about the way he'd sat across from me and seen my loneliness without exploiting it. You've given me reasons, I said quietly. He turned. So have you. Ma'am. My name is Catherine. Catherine. He said it carefully, like it was valuable. I'm Jack. I know. The storm howled outside. Inside, we stood in the warm barn, surrounded by horses and hay and something that felt dangerously close to hope. I'm scared, I admitted. The words were out before I could stop them. I'm scared of trusting, scared of being wrong, scared that everyone eventually wants something I can't afford to give. What can't you afford to give my heart? I looked at him directly. I can't afford to give my heart and have it returned broken. Then don't give it to someone who'd break it. He stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. Give it to someone who'd treasure it. Someone who'd rather die than damage it. Someone who sees it as worth more than all the gold in the territory. Something in my chest cracked wider. Not breaking, opening. I don't know how anymore. Neither do I. He smiled slightly. Maybe we could learn together. The storm passed hours later. We walked back to the mansion together, his hand steadying my elbow on the icy steps. At the door. I didn't want him to leave. The realization terrified me more than anything had in 3 years. Good night, Catherine. Good night, Jack. I watched from the window as he made his way to the bunkhouse. The barn light had burned all night. Now dawn was breaking. I cleaned 2 plates from the kitchen table. Didn't put the second one away. Left it on the shelf next to mine. A small rebellion, a tiny risk, a first step toward trusting that maybe, just maybe, not everyone wanted what they could take. Maybe some people just wanted what you chose to give. The mare went into labor on a Tuesday night. Wrong time 3 weeks early. Wrong presentation back, hooves first. Wrong everything. I heard the commotion from the mansion. Copper screaming, hooves kicking stall walls. Panic in the sounds animals make when something's terribly wrong. I ran. No coat, no thought. Just running through the cold night air toward the barn. Jack was already there, standing outside Copper's stall, face grim. "Breech," he said without preamble. "Foal's coming backward. She's panicking." I didn't have to ask how bad it was. I could see it in the mare's eyes, hear it in her desperate sounds. This was the moment that decided everything, whether my breeding operation continued or collapsed, whether Copper lived or died, whether the foal had any chance at all. "We need to turn it," I said. "I know." He looked at me. "You've done this before. Once, years ago, my husband and I saved a mare." The memory was sharp and painful. "I'll need help. Tell me what to do." No questioning. No doubt. Just trust. Just partnership. I stripped off my coat, rolled up my sleeves, scrubbed my hands and arms in the water trough despite the cold. Jack did the same without being asked. "Keep her calm," I instructed. "Talk to her. Your voice is better for this." He moved to Copper's head, placed his hands on her neck, started speaking in that low, steady voice I'd come to recognize. The voice that gentled nervous animals and made them trust. "Easy, girl. Catherine's gonna help you. She knows what she's doing. You trust her. Remember, trust us both." I worked carefully, methodically. Felt for the foal's position, found the problem. Started the delicate process of repositioning while trying not to panic the mare further or harm the foal. "Front hoof," I said. "Need to get the front hooves forward." "Can you do it?" "I don't know." The honesty surprised me. "But I'm going to try." "Then I believe you can." 4 words. Simple, direct, more powerful than anything anyone had said to me in 3 years. I worked for what felt like hours. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. My arms ached. Copper fought against me, against the pain, against everything that was wrong. "Talk to her," I said. My voice was shaking. "Please." Jack's voice never wavered. "You're doing fine. Copper, Catherine's almost got it. Almost there. You're so brave, girl, so strong. Just a little more." And then there, the shift I'd been working toward. Front hooves forward. Position corrected. "I got it." I gasped. "She can push now. Let her push." Nature took over. The foal came in a rush of fluid and blood and new life. I caught it, cleared its airways, rubbed it roughly with hay to stimulate breathing. The first breath was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "It's alive," Jack said, wonder in his voice. "Catherine, it's alive. She—" I was crying and didn't care. "She's alive. A filly." Copper, exhausted but alive, turned her head to see her baby. Made soft sounds I'd never heard her make before. Maternal sounds. Grateful sounds. We sat in the hay, covered in blood and birth and triumph. The dawn was breaking through the barn windows. Golden light on new life. "We did it," I said. "You did it." He looked at me with something like awe. You knew exactly what to do. You trusted me to know. The words came out thick with emotion. Nobody's trusted my judgment in 3 years. They all assumed they were fools. He said it with absolute conviction. You built this operation. You saved that mare. You did it. Not anyone else. You. I looked at our hands, both dirty, both blood-stained, both essential, equal, partners. We did it, I said again, firmer this time. Together, he smiled. Together, the foal stood on shaky legs. Copper nuzzled her, welcoming her to the world. Life continuing. Life beginning. We walked back to the mansion in the dawn light. I was exhausted. Filthy. More alive than I'd felt in years. Coffee. I offered. I'd like that. We sat in the kitchen, 2 cups on the table. The normalcy of it struck me. When had this become natural? When had sharing coffee and space and silence stopped being terrifying and started being necessary? Thank you, I said, for being there, for trusting me. Thank you for letting me help. He drank his coffee slowly, for seeing me as a partner instead of just hired help. Is that what we are? The question escaped before I could stop it. Partners. He set down his cup. I'd like to be, if you would. My heart pounded. In the horses. In whatever you'll allow. The wall I'd built 3 years ago had cracks running through it now. Wide fissures. Places where light was getting in. Places where I could see through to something that looked dangerously like hope. I'd like that too. I whispered. He reached across the table. This time. I took his hand. The sun rose fully. The foal was alive. Copper was safe. And I was sitting in my kitchen holding hands with a man who'd proven, again and again, that some things were worth more than gold. 3 days later, I decided to end it. The fear came in the night, like it always did. Thoughts that wouldn't quiet, questions that wouldn't stop. What if I was wrong? What if this was the long game? What if he was just patient, waiting for the bigger prize? What if I trusted him and he broke me beyond repair? I sat in my study at 2 a.m, staring at blank paper, tried to write the words that would send him away. Protect me. Save me from the risk of being wrong. Your services are no longer needed. Too cold. I appreciate your work, but it's time for a change. Too vague. I've decided to sell the operation. A lie he'd see through. Why couldn't I just write the truth? I'm terrified. I'm falling for you. I can't afford to be wrong again. I crumpled another attempt. Started again. The severance would be generous. Triple wages. Enough to start his own operation somewhere. I told myself it was kind. Told myself I was doing him a favor. All lies. I was protecting myself the only way I knew how, by running before I could be abandoned. By ending it before it could hurt me. By choosing loneliness over the risk of loss. By 4 a.m, I had the letter written, the money counted. Everything ready. I sat, holding it all, surrounded by 23 rooms of silence, and realized I didn't want to give it to him. Memory washed over me. 20 gold coins returned. Refused wages, his hand in mine, his voice saying, together. The way he'd trusted my judgment when no one else did. The way he saw me, not my money, not my mansion, just me. What if I was throwing away the one honest thing in my life because I was too afraid to keep it? The second coffee cup sat on the kitchen shelf, waiting. hoping. I thought about the foal. How she'd stood on shaky legs and tried anyway. How Copper had pushed through pain to bring new life into the world. How Jack had trusted me to save them both. What if trust was like that? Painful, terrifying. Worth it anyway. Dawn came. I burned the letter in the fireplace, watched the words turn to ash, watched my fear dissolve into smoke. But I still couldn't breathe. The day passed in frozen fear. I avoided the barn, avoided him, sat in the parlor, and tried to convince myself I'd made the right choice by not making a choice at all. Evening came. I saw the barn light come on. Saw him working. Same as always. Steady, honest, real. I had to do something. Had to move forward or backward. Couldn't stay suspended in this terror. The knock on my door startled me. "Ma'am," his voice through the wood. "Catherine, I brought something for you." I opened the door. He stood there holding a crate, carefully wrapped. "What is this Christmas gift?" "I know it's early, but I thought you might like it." Inside the crate was a tiny orange kitten, mewing softly, looking up at me with confused blue eyes. She was at the feed store. Nobody wanted her. Too small. They said, too much work. He smiled slightly. "Thought maybe you'd see her differently. Thought maybe you understood what it was like to be judged wrong." I picked up the kitten, felt her tiny heartbeat against my palm. She was warm, alive, trusting. "She's beautiful. She's company." He said it carefully. If you're tired of being alone." I looked at him, really looked, saw the hope in his eyes, the fear that matched my own, the same risk, the same terror, the same desperate wanting. "Stay for dinner," I said. "Please. I'd like that." We sat at the kitchen table. 2 plates, 2 cups, a kitten sleeping between us. I watched her breathe, watched her trust that the world was safe, watched her believe without evidence. "I was going to fire you," I admitted. He nodded slowly. "I thought you might." I wrote the letter. Had it all ready. "What changed your mind?" "You. This." I gestured between us. "The fact that I couldn't write down the words because I don't want you to go. The fact that I'm more afraid of being alone than I am of being hurt. The fact that—" My voice broke. He waited, patient as ever. "The fact that real wealth isn't what I own. It's what I allow myself to receive. And you're offering me something I've been too afraid to accept. What's that partnership, trust? The possibility that not everyone leaves, that not everyone wants what they can take." I met his eyes. The chance to try, even though it terrifies me. He reached across the table, palm up, offering, choosing, this time. I didn't hesitate. I put my hand in his. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "Spent 10 years running from this exact thing. Told myself I didn't need it, didn't want it. But I was lying. What do you want?" "This, you, a place that matters, someone who sees me, not just what I can do." His grip tightened. "A home, a real home, with someone who makes coffee taste less bitter. Someone who trusts me with her horses and maybe, someday, with her heart." The wall didn't crack anymore. It fell, all of it. 23 rooms of protection collapsing into rubble, and underneath was something I'd forgotten existed. Hope. Real hope. Yes, I whispered. Yes, yes, you can have it. My trust, my partnership. The word stuck. Too big, too dangerous, too true. He waited. My heart. I finished. You can have my heart, if you'll be careful with it. I'll guard it with my life. We sat there holding hands while the kitten slept and the evening deepened. Tomorrow, I would ask him to stay permanently. Tomorrow, I would offer true partnership in the operation, in the ranch, in everything. Tomorrow, I would choose courage over fear. But tonight, I just held his hand and let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, the richest widow didn't have to be the loneliest soul. Maybe she could choose to stop being alone. Morning came with clarity. I found him in the barn, mucking stalls in the early light. The kitten I'd named her Grace was asleep in my pocket. A reminder. A promise. Jack, I need to talk to you. He set down the pitchfork. That sounds serious. Walk with me? We walked toward the north pasture. Neutral ground, equal footing. The morning air was crisp and clean, the kind of cold that made everything feel new. I'd practiced the words all night, still didn't know if they'd come out right. I tested you, I said finally. The gold coins. I planted them deliberately. Wanted to see if you'd steal. Expected you to steal. Needed you to steal so I could keep my walls up. He stopped walking. I forced myself to continue. I wanted you to be like everyone else. Wanted proof that nobody could be trusted, that wealth poisoned everything, that I was safer alone. I turned to face him. I tested you because I was afraid. And when you passed, I got more afraid. Because you became dangerous. Dangerous how? Dangerous because you made me hope. Made me think maybe I was wrong about people. Made me imagine, my voice caught. Made me imagine not being alone anymore. He was quiet. I couldn't read his expression. 3 years, I continued. 3 years of people wanting my money. 3 years of loneliness in that mansion. 3 years of convincing myself it was safer to stay isolated. And then you came, returning gold coins, refusing extra wages, treating me like I mattered more than my fortune. Being honest when honesty was the rarest thing I could imagine. Catherine, let me finish. Please. I took a breath. Last night I almost fired you. Wrote the letter, had it ready, because I was terrified. Love was a luxury. Trust was a risk. I'd lost before. Couldn't lose again. Couldn't. But you didn't give me the letter. No, because I realized something. I met his eyes. The real loss wasn't risking my heart. The real loss was sending away the one person who saw me, not my wealth, not my house, not the widow with the tragic story, just me, Catherine, the woman who was tired of being alone. I pulled the key from my pocket. The house key, the last barrier. I'm asking you to stay. Not as hired help, not as ranch manager. The words came easier now. As my partner, in the horses, in the operation, in my life, in whatever comes. He took the key slowly. Are you sure? I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure. I stepped closer. You gave me honesty when everyone else gave me lies. You gave me respect when everyone else gave me pity. You gave me reasons to trust when I'd forgotten what trust looked like. And I'm choosing you. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing to believe that real wealth isn't money. It's finding someone who values your character over your fortune. Catherine? His voice was rough. I don't have money, don't have land, don't have anything except honest work and a promise that I'll never take advantage. Never lie. Never see you as anything except the woman I... He stopped. The woman you... What? The woman I love? He said it simply. The woman I came to love, her strength, her kindness to animals, her laugh when she finally let it out, the way she makes coffee and pretends it's not bitter, the way she sets 2 plates now instead of 1, the way she saw worth in a kitten nobody wanted, the way she sees worth in me. My eyes burned. You love me. Have for weeks. Probably since you brought me coffee that first morning. Definitely since you saved that mare with hands that were shaking, but sure. He took my hand. I love you. Not your money. Not your house. You, Catherine. The woman who's brave enough to try again. I'm not brave. You're the bravest person I know. Brave enough to test me. Brave enough to let the test fail. Brave enough to trust anyway. Brave enough to ask me to stay. He held up the key. Brave enough to hand me this. Will you stay? On one condition. My heart stopped. What? Stop calling yourself ma'am? He smiled. Call me Jack. Let me call you Catherine. Let me be your partner. Let me be the man who gets to love you. Let me prove every day that you were right to trust me. I couldn't speak. Could only nod. He pulled me close. I'd be honored to stay, to partner with you, to build a life with you, to make that big, empty house feel like a home. We stood there as the sun climbed higher, his arms around me, my head against his chest, his heartbeat steady and sure. I'm still scared. I whispered, so am I. But we'll be scared together. And that makes it better. We walked back toward the mansion. Together? Equal partners? At the door. He used the key, opened what had been locked for 3 years. Inside, Grace was mewing in the kitchen. The coffee was already made. I'd prepared it before finding him. 2 cups waiting, 2 plates ready. This could work, I said. Us. This. It will work. He said it with absolute certainty. Because we both want it to. Because we're both willing to try. Because love isn't about money or houses or any of that. It's about choosing each other. Every day. Every moment, I choose you. I choose you too. We drank our coffee in the kitchen that didn't feel empty anymore. Made plans for the operation. Discussed breeding schedules and training methods and all the practical things that partnerships required. But underneath, the real conversation was simpler. You're staying, I'm staying. We're building this together. By evening. We'd moved his things from the bunkhouse to the house. Not to my room, not yet. But into one of the 23 rooms that had echoed with emptiness. Now it echoed with possibility. Grace followed him everywhere, trusted completely. I envied her ease with it. She knows, Jack said, scooping her up. Animals always know when they're safe. Teach me. Teach you how to know that, how to trust like that, how to believe I'm safe. He set down the kitten, took both my hands. You start by choosing. Then you keep choosing. Every day. Even when it's hard. Even when you're scared. You choose trust. You choose hope. You choose love. And one day, you realize you're not choosing anymore. You're just living it. I leaned forward, kissed him softly. First kiss. New beginning. I'm choosing, I whispered. So am I. The mansion had 23 rooms. Now it had 2 people. A kitten. And the possibility of something I'd thought I'd lost forever. A home. A real home. Not bought with money or built by fortune, but created by choice, by trust. By 2 lonely people brave enough to try. 6 months later, I woke to the smell of coffee. Jack was already in the kitchen. 2 cups poured, Grace weaving between his ankles. The morning routine we'd built together. The life we'd chosen. Morning, he said, handing me my cup. Morning. I didn't remember when I'd stopped counting the place settings. When 2 became normal instead of terrifying. When his presence became necessary instead of threatening. We drank coffee on the porch, watching the horses graze. The operation had expanded 12 mares now, 3 stallions. Word had spread about our breeding program. About the quality. About the partnership that ran it. Mr. Morrison's coming today, Jack reminded me. About the school donation? Let him come, I smiled. He'll see both of us. Deal with both of us. Jack had become the public face of the operation. Better with people than I'd ever been. But he never made a decision without consulting me. Never acted like the ranch was his instead of ours. True partnership, equal partnership. The knock came at 9, predictable as ever. This time, I didn't make him wait. Mr. Morrison, I gestured to the parlor. Come in. Jack joined us. Sitting beside me instead of behind. Morrison's eyes flickered between us. Calculating, adjusting. Mrs. Hartwell, Mr. Brennan, I appreciate you seeing me. What does the school need? Jack asked. Repairs, books, perhaps a new teacher's desk? Morrison smiled his practiced smile. The community thought perhaps you might contribute. How much? I kept my voice even. $1,000 would. We'll give 500, Jack said firmly. And I'll bring supplies and do the repairs myself. Labor's free. Morrison blinked. That's very generous, but surely you could afford 500 in cash, free labor, or nothing at all. I said, your choice. He took the offer, left looking slightly dazed. Jack laughed after the door closed. Think we confused him. Good. Let him be confused. I leaned against him. Let everyone be confused. We know what we're doing. The ranch thrived. The horses thrived. We thrived. I'd learned to laugh again. Learned that love looked different than I'd expected. Quieter. Steadier. Real. Not the passionate declarations and grand gestures of youth, but the steady partnership of 2 people choosing each other daily. Evening came. We sat on the porch as the sun set, Grace asleep between us. The comfortable silence I'd once feared, now precious. Do you miss it? Jack asked. The quiet? The solitude? Never. I took his hand. I don't miss loneliness. Don't miss empty rooms and bitter coffee and setting one plate. Don't miss wondering if anyone would notice if I disappeared. I'd notice. I know. That's the difference. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Bitter. Isolated. Convinced that wealth had bought her everything except what mattered. Convinced that trust was impossible and love was a luxury she couldn't afford. I'd been wrong about so much. I thought money bought everything, I said quietly. Bought me nothing that mattered. What mattered couldn't be bought, only chosen. Only earned. Only risked. You were brave enough to risk it. We both were. I squeezed his hand. You risked trusting a bitter widow Who tested you with gold coins? Who tried to pay you to leave? Who almost fired you out of pure fear? You risked trusting a drifter with nothing to his name except honest work. He smiled. We're a pair of fools. Lucky fools. The stars emerged. Grace woke up and demanded attention. We gave it to her, laughing at her antics, grateful for her small presence. Later, in the kitchen, I washed 2 plates, Jack dried. The routine so familiar now, I couldn't imagine doing it alone. 23 rooms, he said, looking around. Still seems like too many. We'll fill them. Somehow. Someday. I hung up the towel. With life. With people we trust. With family we choose. Sounds good to me. We locked the door together. Not to keep the world out. Just because it was night and time for rest. In bed, I thought about everything that had changed. Everything I'd learned. Everything I'd gained by being brave enough to choose trust over fear. Real treasure wasn't gold in the bank or a mansion on the hill. Real treasure was finding someone who valued your character over your fortune. Who saw you truly, saw you and chose to stay. I'd tested Jack with 20 gold coins. He'd given me something worth infinitely more. Partnership, honesty, love that didn't demand or take but simply existed. Steady and sure. The richest widow can be the loneliest soul. I'd been her. I'd lived that truth for 3 years. But I'd learned something she hadn't known. Learned that wealth wasn't measured in dollars or rooms or land. Wealth was measured in coffee shared and hands held, and someone who made you feel less alone. Wealth was choosing to try, choosing to trust, choosing to believe that not everyone left and not everyone lied and some things were worth the risk of being wrong. I wasn't alone anymore. And that was worth more than all the gold in the territory. Worth more than mining fortunes or mansions or anything money could buy. Because this life, this love, this partnership, I'd chosen it. I'd earned it. I'd built it. And it was real. Grace jumped onto the bed, curled against my side. Jack's breathing deepened into sleep. The house settled into quiet, but it wasn't the empty quiet of loneliness. It was the peaceful quiet of home, of people who belonged together, of wealth that couldn't be bought or sold or tested with coins in a barn. Real wealth. The only wealth that mattered. I smiled in the darkness and let myself believe what I'd once thought impossible. I was safe. I was loved. I was home. And I'd never been richer in my life.